and Scotland. That will move its way south and eastward, so unsettled for many of us on Tuesday, and then changeable Wednesday with further heavy spells of rain on Thursday.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could be our biggest winner yet. Touring in this stylish Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. This brand new 2025 model comes complete with kitchen and bathroom areas and enough space to comfortably sleep a family of 4. We'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to add a few of your favourite things. Don't miss out as lines close on the 6th of June. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good afternoon, there you are. It's 1 o'clock on Sunday, the 1st of June. Pinch punch and all that sort of thing. Or is it too late? Who cares? In any case, happy June. This is the weekend on GB News. Now, your stories this hour. A GB News exclusive. French and UK border patrols overwhelmed as more than 1,200 migrants crossed the Channel in a single day. We will have the latest on that record surge. And
well, this is the biggest number of migrants ever to come at this time of the year. Is it time now for the government to declare a border security emergency?
And what was supposed to be a night of celebration turned into chaos in Paris. 2 dead, hundreds arrested after PSG's Champions League win. We'll have the latest on that story. And a new guide for school tutors says Vikings weren't all blonde and white. They were indeed very diverse, with some even becoming Muslim. We'll debate that. Rewrite of history, possibly? Is it fair or a step too far? And Prince Harry reportedly considered dropping the Windsor name and taking his mother's surname of Spencer. More on that story. I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is The Weekend. Yeah, so thank you for your company this afternoon and happy 1st of June to you. Halfway through the year, I have absolutely no idea how this has happened. I've just been told that I can't say pinch punch first day of the month because you have to do it before midday or something or other. Any case, who cares? We're here. Thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate how busy weekends are, so I really, really love your company. And the favourite part of my show is talking to you lot out there, because this show is indeed all about you. So let me know what you think about all the stories we're talking about, anything you want to talk about, or look, let's just chill together. It's a Sunday afternoon. We don't need any stress. So join in the conversation by visiting gbnews.com/your say, and let's have a chat, shall we? But before we get into today's stories, let's get the latest news headlines from the wonderful Sam Francis.
Dawn, thank you, and a very good afternoon to you. It's just after 1 o'clock. The top story: Britain is bracing for a new era of threat, with £1.5 billion set aside for 6 new weapons factories and munitions spending set to triple to £6 billion. The Defence Secretary John Healey says it's a clear message to Moscow, warning the UK is already under cyber attack and that the keyboard, he says, has become a weapon of war. The new cyber command will launch to counter daily assaults from hostile states like Russia and China. And long-range missiles and drones will also be built here in the UK, with 1,800 new jobs promised as part of Labour's defence overhaul. Well, let's take a listen now to what John Healey had to say to Camilla Tominey here on GB News earlier today.
The keyboard has become a weapon of war, and it's one of the reasons that in the last couple of days I've made the commitment that we'll put £1 billion into the digital upgrade of our armed forces so that we can link AI, autonomy and drones to the hard metal of tanks and artillery and planes. But also we'll establish a new cyber command to try and deal with these threats.
Well, just to bring you a quick breaking line before we move on, that Reuters news agency reporting Ukraine has hit over 40 Russian aircraft with drones, according to Ukrainian security officials. Experts also discussing on social media that the round of attacks could possibly be the worst day in the history of the Russian Air Force, with another airfield exploding. We're just in the process of reviewing some footage coming into us. 40 aircraft reportedly destroyed in those attacks. And that latest round of drone attacks on Russian air bases, of course, coming just hours after a wave of explosions also rocked the Russian rail network around the border with Ukraine. 2 bridges targeted and a number of rail lines in the regions destroyed as well. So we'll keep across any developments on that. But as I say, experts anticipating today could indeed be the worst day in history for the Russian Air Force following those 40 bombers destroyed in Ukrainian strikes. Moving on, a record 1,194 migrants crossed the English Channel yesterday. That is the highest number in a single day so far this year. It brings the total for 2025 to nearly 15,000. That's a 42% rise compared to this time last year. Sources suggest both UK and French patrols are being, quote, completely overwhelmed, with even fishing boats stepping in to help. The Defence Secretary John Healey called it shocking, saying smugglers are picking people up like a taxi. He also criticised French police for failing to stop boats from launching into shallow waters. In France, 2 people have died and nearly 560 arrests made after PSG's Champions League win sparked riots across the country. A 17-year-old was stabbed and a man in his 20s killed in a scooter crash during street celebrations. Police were seen using tear gas and water cannons in Paris, where fireworks were hurled at officers and cars set alight. One officer, we understand, is in a coma after being struck by a firecracker. There is also more violence expected today as the team holds celebration parades across the city. The UK has thrown out disposable vapes, with a nationwide ban now in force today to curb youth addiction and cut plastic waste. Shops and supermarkets can no longer sell single-use devices, as ministers are warning nearly 5 million are binned every week. Refillable and rechargeable vapes are still allowed, though, but in England and Wales, breaking the rules could cost retailers a £200 fine. The government says it's a win for kids and the climate, but critics are warning the ban could fuel a black market and say tougher action is still needed. Calls to arm prison officers are growing after a series of violent attacks behind bars. Robert Jenrick says staff should have access to lethal weapons, tasers and even stun grenades to tackle dangerous inmates. He's warning of a growing risk that officers could be kidnapped or killed without urgent reform. It follows a string of assaults, including the Manchester Arena bomber attacking staff with boiling oil. A government trial of tasers for specialist officers is due to begin this summer. And just before I hand you back to Dawn, an update on the death toll in Rafah in Gaza, where it has now risen to 31, according to reports. That's after Israeli tanks opened fire near an aid distribution centre. More than 200 people have also been taken to hospital with many serious injuries. But the Israel-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation says those reports are false and fabricated. The IDF also says it's unaware of any civilian casualties. Meanwhile, Israeli forces say they have eliminated dozens of terrorists and destroyed 100 Hamas targets. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back with you in half an hour. Now, though, it's over to the party woman, Dawn Neeson.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Sam. I think. Any case, good afternoon to you all. Welcome to the show. Lovely to have your company. And just want to read out one message before we actually kick off from Grumpy Grandad. Says, I'm looking hot in red. Yes, you can say that. I'm not upset in any way, shape or form, Grumpy, but it is orange. Right, OK, enough of that. Now, if you want to get in touch, by the way, gbnews.com/your say. Join the conversation, even about oranges. Now, let's get straight into today's stories, because the first story is really going to annoy you, and it is, well, it's astonishing. GB News can exclusively reveal that the Channel crisis is out of control, with maritime security sources telling us that French and British patriots are overwhelmed. Yesterday alone, one day, remember, 1,200 migrants crossed the Channel. That's the highest daily total ever, up 43% on last year. Even our fishing boats had to help as resources buckled under the strain. OK, well, joining me now is the expert on all this, who's always done a brilliant job covering it, is GB News Home and Security Editor Mark White. Mark, where are you, Mark? Come on, get a wriggle on, Mark.
Right here, Dawn.
There you are, Mark. Thank you. I can see you now. I couldn't see you. Always a joy to look at. Mark, this is really annoying, isn't it? This is quite an astonishing number in one day.
It is incredible, and I think the most incredible thing about it, it's not the highest number ever. That was 1,300 in September of 2022, but we have this is the second highest number without a doubt, and very rarely do we ever get this high. We can top 1,000 in the very hot days of summer. I'm talking August, September time. To get this number, one, is significant. To get it so early in the year is phenomenal. You're looking at images there shot by our colleagues from the Press Association who were across the other side of the Channel at Gravelines, a coastline and community resort which is between Dunkirk and Calais. And there you see lots and lots of migrants wading out into the shallow English Channel at that point to get on what are called taxi boats. These are boats that have come in, launched a bit further up the coast or launched from local rivers. They come round, they've already got some people on board, and then they come and they collect the others. It's this process, and we see the police there standing around doing absolutely nothing, which I know is infuriating government ministers in this country as well, because the French have passed a new policy, a new law, allowing their maritime RIBs, rigid inflatable boats, to intervene when these small boats are in such shallow waters to be able to push them back. But they haven't enacted that policy as yet, and the British government will now be pushing the French as a matter of urgency to do what they said they would do when they passed this new legislation, to start pushing these small boats back onto the beach. But there's two things to say about this. If they do that, then it will, I'm sure, lead to scenes of real anger and disorder among the migrants towards the police. We saw that when the police have tried to puncture boats at various points, when police officers have been badly beaten up by migrants. The other thing, of course, is you can push the migrants back onto the beach, but unless you have a policy of detaining them, processing them, and effectively getting them out of your country, all you're doing is just disrupting their plan one day. They regroup, they try and probably succeed the day after or the day after that, Dawn.
Well, therein lies the rub, doesn't it? I mean, it's like something has to be done to deter them from getting on the boats in the first place. Whether that was Rwanda or not, we never got to find out. But until we... I mean, it's all very well, Mark, isn't it? Smash the gangs. If you smash one gang, another one's going to take its place. What we need to do is try and deter those people getting on the boats in the first place. And while the politicians are working that out, you mentioned sort of like, you know, anger and disorder on the French beaches. What about the anger over here from people that are seeing this happen and feeling like they are now being put in second place by the migrants crossing the Channel?
And there's no doubt there is a great deal of anger in this country. The government is alive to that. That's why they say that this is a top priority for this government, as it was for the previous government. But, you know, the anger of people here will not be soothed by these images, exclusive images shot by our Kent producer in Dover yesterday, which show phenomenal images of boats, lifeboats and Border Force vessels queuing up to get into Dover Harbour to offload those migrants. Now, he's been covering it, our producer down in Kent, for years. He has never seen back-to-back boats coming into harbour like this. It was so busy at one point, both the Border Force patrol vessels and the French maritime patrol vessels were overwhelmed. That's why they called in the lifeboats to help them out. But they were then so overwhelmed that when the Coast Guard got the routine calls on a hot summer's day that you get, such as a yacht which was bailing out water because it had a fault and kayakers in trouble, the Coast Guard had to co-opt the help of local fishing boats to go to the assistance of these people until they could get maritime assets on scene, because they were busy dealing with the migrants at that point. So, as I say, just that kind of news will do nothing but stoke the anger being felt by many in this country. We're told that, you know, the law and order approach, the law enforcement approach of smash the gangs will pay dividends. In the end, it's a long process, but many maritime experts, Dawn, that we've spoken to, including Tony Smith, the former chief executive of Border Force, says it cannot be done without a proper deterrent, such as the Rwanda scheme. We'll never know if the Rwanda scheme would have worked, because finally, just before it was about to get off the ground and the first flights were due to fly to Rwanda, having cost many hundreds of millions of pounds to set up, the Labour government decided, and maybe it's for ideological reasons, maybe they genuinely did think that Rwanda was not a safe country to send these migrants to, but it was Sir Keir Starmer's first act when he entered Downing Street was to scrap the Rwanda deal. Now look where we are, almost a year down the road, hitting record levels crossing the English Channel.
Indeed. And just quickly, Mark, yesterday obviously was the 85th anniversary of Dunkirk, where the little ships went over to rescue, obviously, the soldiers trapped on the beaches there. An amazing act of bravery. Those little boats, those little ships were coming over at the same time as this was going on yesterday. If any of those little ships and the people recreating that, reminding us of what the sacrifices were 85 years ago, had got into trouble, we wouldn't have even had the lifeboats to help out, would we? Because they were escorting migrants into the country.
Well, I can actually reveal that Ramsgate lifeboat, I think learning the potential lessons of what could happen, because these little boats were disrupted by a migrant boat in their outward journey to France just over a week or so ago. Authorities attached an RNLI lifeboat, the Ramsgate lifeboat, to that flotilla coming back. So that's one positive. They did do that. So if they got into trouble, they would have been able to respond. But of course, you know, juxtaposition, contrast, whatever term you want to use, their commemoration of that solemn occasion 85 years ago with what many people see as, you know, an invasion any time we have good weather. Now, there are those critics that say, you know, that using the word invasion is inflammatory, but I don't know what else is an apt description when you have you know, many hundreds of people coming in multiple boat after boat that overwhelms your border security defences.
OK, Mark, thank you so much for that. That's our Home and Security editor with that exclusive on the huge number of boat crossings yesterday. Mark, thank you very much. OK. Now, Sir Keir Starmer is under pressure to sack his Attorney-General after it emerged that Lord Hermer signed off the prosecution of Lucy Connolly. You remember that lady was jailed over a controversial social media post after the Southport riots. Lord Hermer is already facing calls to quit after his Nazi remarks over leaving the European Convention on Human Rights. Yeah, a lot of trouble there. Joining me now is the former Conservative Party Special Advisor, Lauren McKevitt. Lauren, good to see you this morning. Thank you for joining me. I mean, another day, another story about Lord Hermer and an incredible hole he seems to be in at the moment.
He appears to enjoy digging himself into more ideological holes than perhaps the Attorney General's office was really designed for. This was always a much more neutral role within Cabinet than it has been treated by Lord Hermer. And I think at a time when we're releasing a lot of people from prison early, violent criminals from prison early, because we have an overcrowding issue, there was a legitimate question over whether or not a full prosecution rather than the option for some sort of caution. I don't know if that was available. I'm not the AG and I'm not a lawyer. I should be very clear about that. But the decision to prosecute, having had involvement from the Attorney General's office, would seem to be a very strange political decision for the government at the same time as the Justice Secretary is having to deal with the overcrowding issue in our prisons.
It was a very curious decision, and you know, lots of questions being asked now, and it's all gone rather quiet. And the Lucy Connolly, she did actually lose her appeal, didn't she? And also we have Rachel Reeves this morning in trouble again.
Yeah, she's not proving to be particularly popular with the electorate. Now, that's fairly logical. She's taken some decisions that a lot of people will be very unhappy with. And there is an argument that your Chancellor isn't supposed to be popular. George Osborne was booed at the Olympics in 2012 after a particularly hardline budget. It's possible that this Chancellor is dealing with a set of economic circumstances that mean that she was never, ever going to be popular in any way. However, I think this is compounded by a lot of people feeling that she's fumbling the ball in a lot of respects. And, you know, there are briefings coming out about the amount that you're going to be able to put into an ISA that's tax-free, the amount that you're going to be able to put into a pension that's tax-free. There's a lot of sort of background briefing. There's this very, very left-wing note from Angela Rayner, which has gone into the Treasury, that Rachel Reeves is now having to sort of bat back. And there is going to be a very natural feeling in the country that people aren't feeling the benefit of what they're putting into the state. So why on earth should they continue to put into the state only for it to be spent on areas that have nothing to do with them? There is a consensus that is breaking in this country about the link between your taxation and the common good. And I think that Rachel Reeves is probably the end result of several chancellors having a problem with that. But she has not grappled with it politically well enough at all.
Do you think she'll last, Lauren?
I think that it would be very silly to try and get rid of her at a point where you have to make further tough decisions at a budget later this year. There is an argument that, you know, you shouldn't really try and switch horses halfway through this particular stretch. And this budget that's going to come towards the end of the year is probably not going to be any kinder or nicer than last year's. There's not an awful lot of headroom. There's not an awful lot to give away. There are going to be very few rabbits in the hat, I would say.
But they
With that
promised
being
us.
the case,
They promised us they weren't going to put any more taxes.
do you get rid of her?
Well, quite. And finally, Lauren, 2 in 3 Tory voters want Boris back to replace Kemi Badenoch.
I think Conservative voters look at Boris Johnson as a messiah-like figure, but I'm not entirely certain that the 2 in 3 Tory voters are enough voters at this point to get us to a majority under Boris. And there's a lot of people in the country who remember that they couldn't attend a grandmother's funeral, who remember that his staff that he hand-selected to be in number 10 were behaving badly at a time when the rest of the country was being told that they must, by law, behave well, and that the general chaos of how he ran his government would be something that we would have no guarantee of avoiding again. His former chief advisor, Dominic Cummings, called him, I think, the trolley with the wobbly wheel. I don't know that that's ever changed. And so, yes, I can understand why you would call for the ebullient, the joyful, the last man who won big, but I don't know that that's actually the solution that we require.
Oh, it's all a bit of a mess, isn't it, Lauren? Thank you very much for joining and cheering us all up on this Sunday lunchtime. Thank you very much. That's Conservative Party Special Advisor Lauren McKevitt. OK, well, there is something that will cheer you up, though. Time is running out on your chance to win our biggest Great British giveaway to date. Yes, it's your chance to drive away in a brand new motorhome, you know this by now, worth £67,000, plus £5,000 to spend whatever you want, and Rachel Reeves can't get hold of that. So, disappear this summer. Here's all the details you need to win it.
It's the final week to see how you could be our biggest winner yet.
Driving away in this Elnag Baron 560 motorhome, courtesy of Marquis Leisure. It has plenty of room for your family of 4, comes complete with kitchen, bathroom and all the space you'll need for life on the road. And the best news? You can drive it on your existing driving licence. Plus, we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Don't delay. You can't win if you're not in the draw. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry starts at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
This motorhome and £5,000 in cash really could be yours. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. Just want to read a quick message out because lots of you agree. This is from David. Smash the gangs. Do we now have the RNLA facilitating the invasion of the UK to the extent that fishing boats are having to carry out their work for them? Does seem to be the case, doesn't it? I'm Jordan Neeson. This is GB News. There's loads more coming up on today's show. It's absolutely packed. What was supposed to be a night of celebration turned into chaos in Paris with 2 dead, hundreds arrested. That's after PSG's Champions League win. Should have been a great night, but we'll have an exclusive on that one. All of that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. Don't go too far. We'll see you soon.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
A very good morning to you. And if you're planning to visit one of Britain's many beauty spots next bank holiday or Easter weekend, beware of your car.
Yeah, a rising number of tourist attractions are banning coaches and some cars to help ease overcrowding.
We're here to debate if vehicles should be stopped from parking near attractions. Government Relations Manager at the Countryside Alliance, David Bean, and founder of Fair Fuel UK campaign, Howard Cox. Good morning to you both.
David, how much of a problem are tourists when there are too many of them and they bring their great camper vans and they park all their cars in a line so you actually can't see the beauty spot you went to see? How much of a problem is it?
It can be a significant problem in certain areas. I'm in Scotland for the holidays, and particularly in areas such as the Highlands and Islands, there are areas that have very, very badly been affected. Even some camper vans end up getting taken out to certain places on the islands and then just abandoned after a holiday is finished.
Honestly, this is horses for courses, and to be fair, you know, I actually do believe that we need better signage, better planning, and Cameron hit the nail on the head. You can't get to these beauty spots unless you have some sort of transport to get there. And, you know, public transport is woeful across the country in these areas. Obviously, yesterday in the Berlin Gap one, you can't legislate for idiots. It needs better signage, better information, but if you take people away from it, you take income away from the community. You know, I think any organisation that's promoting a beauty spot that's making money out of it should be paying for better signage, better parking facilities, etc. I do not like the idea of cars being, you know, queuing up illegally, you could say. That's ridiculous.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Thank you so much for your company this Sunday afternoon. Now, last night, it was supposed to be a night of celebration, wasn't it? But it turned into chaos in France after PSG, Paris Saint-Germain, beat Inter Milan in the Champions League final. This left 2 people dead, nearly 560 arrested and almost 700 fires reported, including 264 cars torched in the capital. Joining me now is French journalist Anne-Elisabeth Moutet. Anne-Elisabeth, thank you so much for joining me this morning. And I'm seeing the pictures overnight, horrific scenes. It looked like Paris was on fire at one point. Can you tell us what it was like? I believe you were actually there, weren't you?
I actually live 1.5 streets from the Champs-Élysées, and therefore it spilled over into my street, and it was deeply unpleasant until about 4 a.m, at which moment it sort of petered out. And it was, unfortunately, it didn't feel so new because there's a kind of toleration of this thing creeping bit by bit that when you've got a large gathering of people, whatever it is, if it's political, if it's a game, there will be a fringe of people, and they're a fringe, that will destroy things. The question is, why do, considering that these, about the same kind of things without, thank God, the death, happened when they got into, they won the semi-final, why have this fan zone in the middle of Paris, in the Champs-Élysées, when it's completely expected that this will happen? We've got nice, sort of, 2 large parks, the Bois de Boulogne and the Bois de Vincennes, and you wonder why on earth call in the kind of, spectators, obviously, but the kind of also people who will organise what you're showing right now on the screen.
Mm. Were you worried for your safety at all?
I wasn't, but I was on the 3rd floor of a building. I know that people in my street were very worried. I know that the shops in my street all closed down and put plywood on their windows. I know that the concierge of a building next to me was told by her husband, please come home before 8 because it will become dangerous afterwards. I know that the breakage in the grocery shop in front of my house has not yet been fixed, and that the owner says they will break it again and there's no point. And so if I sound a bit upset, it's because it should not be happening. It's a minority of people, but it should not be happening.
And obviously, we do know that a 20-year-old woman was hit on a scooter, was hit by a car and lost her life, and a 17-year-old boy was stabbed and has died as well. So now there is 2 stories around over here. That it was obviously the football fans, but there was also influence by outsiders. There's always sort of like rent-a-mob don't get involved in these sort of things, and lots of people are blaming the migrant problem that Paris has. What would you say to that?
I actually don't think so much at migrants. I think it's second and third generation youth whose parents or grandparents migrated and who feel that it is fun to do this. And it's very well to say, oh, but, you know, things happen. And we had riots a year and a half ago because one boy in a banlieue north of Paris refused to stop when the police wanted to arrest him, with the result that the police shot. The police probably shouldn't have shot, but all the same, it created massive riots in France and massive destruction. But this, you can't even say that, because for the semi-final and yesterday, it was just a game. And there's a kind of mood that says that you can come and loot and break stuff just because you feel like it.
It's a tragic scenes indeed. Anne-Elizabeth Moutet, thank you very much for joining me from Paris, bringing up to date on that story. OK, now let's get the other side of the story, which it was a great football match as well, and to see what the football community are saying about it. Joining me now is sports broadcaster Aidan McGee. Aidan, good to see you. Thank you. Now, it was a great football match. I mean, you know, we were working together yesterday, you predicted that PSG would win. It was 5-0. It's a staggering game. The youngsters came through, but the victory was marred by what we saw afterwards.
Yeah, without doubt, Dawn. I mean, look, let's separate the two things. It's more important than ever when we're talking about this event that we do that, because, yes, it's been marred by what's happened off the pitch. But last night, PSG produced football from a different planet. Now, I said yesterday, didn't I? I said it felt like their time. When I said it felt like their time, I didn't mean 5-0 time. And they were 2-0 up inside 2 minutes. What's extraordinary as well is that, you know, I went through some of those players yesterday. I didn't realise how young some of them were. I mean, we had a 19-year-old on the score sheet. We had an 18-year-old, the youngest goal scorer since 1995, when Patrick Kluivert got the winner for Ajax against Juventus. And I don't know how long can this team go on well, they can potentially dominate now. You know, they're young enough. They've got the wherewithal to keep these players. It's not like the vultures are going to come circling a side that's owned by the Qatari royal family. Yes, they're going to lose the odd player to Real Madrid like Kylian Mbappe, but what would he have been thinking last night? He moved out of PSG last summer because he didn't feel he could win the Champions League there. He goes to Real Madrid to go out in the quarter-final against Arsenal over 2 legs, and he'll be sitting at home last night wondering, wow, if only these players had come through last season. And don't forget, they're through the academy as well. They're not even players that they bought from other clubs. I mean, when you think about it, they've had Zlatan Ibrahimovic, they've had Ronaldinho, they've had Edison Cavani, they've had Messi, they've had Neymar. You know, they were almost signed Cristiano Ronaldo. The Galactico era, which was meant to usher this period in maybe 5 or 6 years ago, didn't happen when you've got these players in your side. And it was a conundrum that they just couldn't solve. There was Ancelotti was there, Mauricio Pochettino was there, Unai Emery was there. And none of these managers could deliver this success, and yet Luis Enrique has come in. He's had a really wretched few years as well. He had a poor time as manager of Spain during the World Cup in 2022. And for him personally last night, you can see the picture on your screen there. That's a banner that was unfurled by the PSG Ultras in Munich last night. Now, what that depicts is him with his daughter, Zana, back in 2015 when he won the treble with Barcelona. By the way, he's only the second manager to achieve the treble with 2 different clubs. And that's a picture of him with his daughter putting a flag in the middle of the pitch in Berlin back then. They produced a version of that in a Paris Saint-Germain kit because his daughter, Zana, died of bone cancer back in 2019. And obviously, He's been struggling with that. But you know what? The youthfulness of his side, the occasion last night, the performance produced by his side, the biggest margin of victory in a final, that would have given him a hell of a lot of comfort yesterday.
Aidan, just very, very quickly, what have UEFA had to say about the trouble that came after the final?
Well, they said they're going to investigate, obviously, but they did this, don't forget, Dawn, in 2022.
Yes, with Liverpool.
There was a final in Paris when Liverpool played Real Madrid.
Yeah.
Nothing really came of that because the Olympics were on their way. Don't trust UEFA in any way, shape or form when it comes to instances like this, I'm afraid to say.
We'll wait to hear. Thank you. Thanks very much, Aidan. That's sports broadcaster Aidan McGee on the great game last night and the horrible scenes afterwards. Well, was ever thus, wasn't it? I'm Dawn Neeson, this is GB News, and there's plenty more coming up on today's show. But first, Sam Francis is back with those news headlines for you.
Very good afternoon to you. 1:35 exactly. The top story. Britain has lost control of its borders. That is the warning from the Defence Secretary after a record 1,194 migrants made the crossing across the Channel in a single day yesterday. Migrants, including children, were seen wading into the shallows on French beaches as police watched and later escorted the boats towards the UK. It brings the total so far this year to nearly 15,000 people. That's up 42% on the same time last year. John Healey blamed the previous Conservative government for what he described as chaos in the asylum system and criticised French police for failing to intervene. The Home Office, though, says it will stop at nothing to dismantle the smugglers' business model. Well, as we were just hearing from Aidan and Dawn, 2 people have died and nearly 560 arrests made after PSG's Champions League win sparked riots across France. A 17-year-old boy was stabbed to death and a man in his 20s killed in a scooter crash during celebrations on the streets. Police used tear gas and water cannons in Paris, where fireworks were hurled at officers and cars set alight. One officer is in a coma after being struck by a firecracker. There's also more violence expected today as police anticipate 100,000 people taking to the streets as the team holds celebration parades. Britain is bracing for a new era of threat, with £1.5 billion set aside for 6 new weapons factories and munitions spending set to triple to £6 billion. Defence Secretary John Healey says it's a clear message to Moscow, warning that the UK is already under cyber attack and that the keyboard, he says, has become the weapon of war. A new cyber command will launch to counter daily assaults from hostile states like Russia and China. Long-range missiles and drones will also be built here in the UK, with 1,800 new jobs promised as part of Labour's defence overhaul. Well, here's what John Healey had to say to Camilla Tominey earlier on GB News.
The keyboard has become a weapon of war, and it's one of the reasons that in the last couple of days I've made the commitment that we'll put £1 billion into the digital upgrade of our armed forces so that we can link AI, autonomy and drones to the hard metal of tanks and artillery and planes. But also we'll establish a new cyber command to try and deal with these threats.
And the UK is throwing out disposable vapes with a nationwide ban now in force to curb youth addiction and cut plastic waste. From today, shops and supermarkets can no longer sell single-use devices, as ministers warn nearly 5 million are binned every week. Refillable and rechargeable vapes are still allowed, though, but in England and Wales, breaking the rules could cost retailers a £200 fine. The government says it's a win for kids and the climate, but critics warn a ban could fuel a black market and say tougher action still needed to stop teenagers getting hooked. You're up to date just after 12:30. Dawn will be straight back with you after this.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to a GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, it's a showery start to meteorological summer, drier on Monday and then turning wet and windy later. So looking at the bigger picture, we have this area of low pressure situated towards the north, quite breezy as well, with a bit of a squeeze in the isobars and frontal systems moving through. So best of the fine and dry weather across the southeast today. Elsewhere, it is going to be a mixture of sunny spells, scattered showers, longer spells of rain clearing its way eastwards across Scotland, followed by further showers behind. Otherwise, breezy out there, but the strongest winds really confined to northwestern Scotland, so feeling cool here. Otherwise, highs of up to 20 to 22 in the southeast. Now, as we go through a Sunday evening, further showers. Some of these could be heavy, especially across north and eastern parts of Scotland, with longer spells of rain across the north and accompanied by some strong winds. Across Northern Ireland, a similar picture, some late evening spells of sunshine, but mixed with showers. Across much of England and Wales, though, largely fine and dry to end Sunday. Just a few showers around. So as we go through Sunday evening and overnight, we have some spells of rain across the north and west of Scotland, but with the ridge of higher pressure moving in, most of the showers will start easing, so turning a lot drier with lengthy clear skies as we go overnight and lighter winds. So it could turn chilly in some spots, especially across the north where we could see a touch of frost, otherwise milder in the south. So as we start Monday, many places waking up to a fine and dry day. We'll see a few showers bubbling up, mostly across East Anglia, and then the sunshine turning hazy out towards the west across Northern Ireland and Scotland, accompanied by a brisker wind before the area of low pressure arrives. So again, cooler here, but in the sunshine and lighter winds, feeling pleasant.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hello, welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. And now you really want to brace yourself because this story is going to annoy. Yes, another one's going to annoy you, but in a fun way, I like to think, we'll hope. The Vikings were more diverse than we originally thought. Well, evidently they were. A new teaching guide suggests ditching the old image of blonde Scandinavians in favour of a more inclusive take. You knew that was coming, didn't you? But is this an overdue update, or are we simply rewriting history to fit the modern agenda? OK, joining me now to discuss this is commentator Iman Aiton and head teacher Christine Cunliffe. Ladies, thank you so much for joining me. Right, seconds out. Now, used to behave yourself, you. OK, now, this story is in the papers today. Vikings were not white, and this is what pupils should be told. Iman, I mean, is there a point to this story?
Yes, because I think we're conflating Vikings with Scandinavians and the Norse people. So Vikings is an occupation of the Scandinavians and Norse people. It actually means in Old Norse, pirate raid or pirate raider. And now what people forget is the fact that Scandinavians and Norse people, they migrated across the world, across Europe, Asia, North Africa, and then they had interracial relationships or relations with black and brown people, and then they created children. And those children created, or rather adopted, the culture that they were taught by their parents, by their dad, by their community, their Scandinavian Norse people that supported them. And next thing you know, you have black, brown and tan people calling themselves Vikings. So moral of the tale is you can be a Viking, which is an occupation, pirate raider, being a black person, a brown person, or a tan person. But where we go awry is we conflate that with its origin. So the origin is Scandinavians. Norse people, and they ended up becoming Vikings because they tried to find a means of making money. So they would raid and they would travel the seas. And those people originally had one race, which was white. Okay. Just one race, okay? And then they had multiple ethnicities because Scandinavian countries, sorry, Dawn, Scandinavian countries were three main countries: Norway, Denmark, Sweden. So different ethnicities, one race that is different to Vikings. Let's not conflate the two.
OK, all right. What do you make of that, Christine?
Well, look, I'm one for diversity. I'm all for all children getting the best academics in front of them for 100% of the children in this country, not just 93 or 7, but that's another story, and I won't go on to that one either. But the issues I've got with this article in particular is the relation to white. Now, back then, 793 to 1066, there was no reference to things like whites because the idea of race as a biological cultural name only is part of the 17th and 19th century thinking. So back then, we'd be thinking of more words such as kinship and tribe. And as you just said, you know, status as well, Danes, Norsemen, Slavs. So there's things like that. And yeah, they were great traders. So you're bound to find these artifacts in graves. Now, if I was buried tomorrow, and I hope I'm not, right, in 1,000 years' time, you might find a ring on me that might be gifted from my husband from a different culture. But it doesn't mean I share his culture or his beliefs. So if you find an object in a grave, it doesn't mean that you're actually inheriting those personal beliefs. And also what we've got to be careful of is ideology as well. Now, what we're saying is terminology at different times in different centuries. We are going through a time of political movements, political change, ideology, and we've got to be careful that we don't distort or oversimplify the teachings and the history and actually teach our children to pursue the truth. Because with AI in particular now, and we've all got an opinion of what history looks like, they need the skills to dig up what the truth is and not what we're told by people who have particular beliefs. We need to firmly root in academic excellence, academic rigour, and respect what we do know from primary source evidence.
Ladies, unfortunately, you've both been brilliant. You both argued your points, really, and you didn't tear each other's heads off like you normally do. Iman and Christine, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. Really appreciate that. What do you think? gbnews.com/your say? I know a lot of you have been getting in touch about that one. Were Vikings more diverse than we think? Let me know. OK, now, if you are in search of some holiday sun, here is a forecast for some of those top European destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello, there's plenty of hot sunshine across most of the Mediterranean, but there are some thunderstorms in places, particularly in southern France. Across the Canary Islands and Madeira, though, there'll be this brisk northerly flow on Monday, bringing in quite a bit of cloud, but sunshine for southern parts of Spain. Here are those thunderstorms across the Alps, southern parts of France, but most of Italy, the Balkans and Greece and Turkey having plenty of hot sunshine and temperatures into the high 20s, and the outlook is for plenty more dry and settled weather.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Nigel is back.
Good evening.
Unfiltered.
Are these proposals bold enough?
Uncompromising.
Will it bring growth?
Unmissable.
We as a country are brilliant.
Nigel Farage returns this Tuesday from 7 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Bev.
Hello, everyone. Patrick Christie is here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's News Channel.
News channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to The Weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Lots of you getting in touch about that debate about what colour Vikings were. Robin says, we'll be told the moon is a different colour next. Well, you're right, isn't it? But, yeah, keep your comments coming in at gbnews.com/your say. Now, we are moving on to another subject that I think might actually get you a little bit agitated. Prince Harry reportedly sought advice from Princess Diana's brother about changing his family name to Spencer, his mum's name. Sources close to the Duke of Sussex say the amicable conversation ended with Earl Spencer advising him against such a move, saying the legal hurdles were insurmountable. But the consultation itself is surely a sign that the rift between Harry and his family, i.e. his dad, who wouldn't have liked this, is going nowhere. So let's hear the thoughts of historian and broadcaster Rafe Haydel-Mankoo. Rafe, good to see you. Thank you for joining me. Now, the King would not have liked this at all, would he?
No. It's also a very bizarre thing for Harry to consider because, you know, princes and royal dukes and HRHs don't use a surname. So there's no situation in which, you know, he would be styled with a surname, doesn't even appear on his birth certificate. And the fact that he seriously considered, you know, actively considered changing his name to Spencer, I think just gives further proof of how deeply troubled and obsessed he is. Because, you know, to change your surname to your dead mother's surname, especially when, of course, you're the son of the king of the royal house of Windsor. That's such an extreme, you know, I would say it's a pathological act that you have to wonder about his state of mind. I think it's, you know, it screams of being very narcissistic and attention-seeking, because that's the sort of thing you might expect from someone in their 20s, but not a man approaching his middle age. It's about how can I display to the world how deeply estranged I am from my father's family. I can't just bear this quietly like some normal person. I need to make this out with some great dramatic gesture on the world stage. Look how noble I am to reject my name. But as you say, secondly, I think it shows a cruel streak to Prince Harry, because to change your name is obviously going to cause hurt and embarrassment to the king. And why on earth would he do that? And how can he actually consider doing such a thing one moment and then talk about reconciling with the king another moment?
There is some confusion about whether Meghan was behind this because she wanted her daughter to have Lilibet Diana Spencer as her name. What do you think?
Well, yes, this is something that Tom Bower has said as well, that Meghan essentially wanted to cast herself as the 21st century version of Diana, and because her daughter's name is Lilibet Diana, to change that to Lilibet Diana Spencer would sort of make that connection all the more obvious. But what a weird and bizarre thing to do.
Unfortunately, we're out of time, lovely. Rafe Haydel-Mankoo, thank you so much. Don't get too far. I'm back after this very short break. Dawn Neeson, GB News. See you very soon.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good afternoon and welcome to a GB News weather update from the Met Office. We've got a few showers through the rest of today, but it's going to be drier on Monday before turning wet and windy later on. So having a look at the bigger picture, we've got low pressure situated towards the north, but out towards the west, a ridge of high pressure helping to settle things down as we go through Monday. So through the rest of this afternoon and evening time, any showers gradually fading away. There'll be a few still persisting across Scotland and perhaps northwestern parts of Wales, but otherwise many places seeing lengthy clear skies. You may even see the aurora tonight across Scotland. Feeling chilly in the north with lighter winds, may see a touch of frost, but otherwise milder in the south, lows of 10 to 11. So as we start Monday morning then, many places are seeing fine and settled conditions. Best of the sunshine across Scotland is going to be across eastern areas with a few showers still out towards the west but with lighter winds. Across Northern Ireland, plenty of sunny spells to start the morning. A few showers around across parts of Northern England and Wales, but we'll need to focus our attention to East Anglia as we go through the afternoon. That's where we'll more likely see showers developing. So as we go through Monday afternoon then, some showers will bubble up across East Anglia, but many places out towards the west are fine and dry. Across Northern Ireland and Scotland, sunshine will be turning increasingly hazy with the winds picking up ahead of the next area of low pressure. So feeling cooler here, especially in that wind, but in the sunshine and lighter winds across the southeast, highs are reaching up to 21 or 22 degrees. So as we go through Monday evening, turning increasingly wet and windy from the west, so heavy spells of rain and strong winds across Northern Ireland and Scotland. That will move its way south and eastward, so unsettled for many of us on Tuesday and then changeable Wednesday with further heavy spells of rain on Thursday.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed home battery storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could be our biggest winner yet, touring in this stylish Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. This brand new 2025 model comes complete with kitchen and bathroom areas and enough space to comfortably sleep a family of four. We'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to add a few of your favourite things. Don't miss out as lines close on the 6th of June. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here
we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. It's 2 o'clock on Sunday, the 1st of June. I had to double check as well. This is the weekend on GB News. A packed show for you. Now, starting off with the stories this hour. A GB News exclusive. French and UK border patrols overwhelmed as more than 1,200 migrants crossed the Channel in a single day. And should prison officers be armed? That's what Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick believes. We'll debate that story. And this is a cracker for you. A witch claims she was kicked off a druid training course for being, wait for it, transphobic, after supporting the exclusion of trans women from female-only spaces. She'll join us next to tell her story. And Doctor Who fans in meltdown, Billie Piper's surprise return as the Doctor, well, possibly, has stunned viewers. We'll have all the details on that huge twist. I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is The Weekend. Now, I don't know about you lot, but I remember Doctor Who when it was filmed in a quarry in Kent with monsters made out of cardboard. But at least I understood it. I watched Doctor Who last night. I have no idea what happened at all, even after 70 minutes. So you don't want to miss our report on what that is all about. Because this show is nothing without you and your views. So please let me know your thoughts on everything we're discussing or what you want to talk about. It's a Sunday afternoon. I'm just grateful for your company. Very simple to join our conversation. Go to gbnews.com/yoursay and join in the conversation. But before we get stuck into today's stories, let's get the news headlines with Sam Francis.
Dawn, thank you, and a very good afternoon to you. Just coming up, just turning 2 minutes past 2. While the top story, Britain has lost control of its borders. That is the warning from the Defence Secretary today after a record 1,194 migrants crossed the Channel just yesterday alone. Migrants, including children, were seen wading into the shallows on a French beach as police watched and later escorted the boats towards the UK. It brings the total so far this year to now nearly 15,000. That's up 42% on the same time last year. John Healey blamed the previous Conservative government for what he described as chaos in the asylum system and criticised French police for failing to intervene. The Home Office, though, says it will stop at nothing to dismantle the smugglers' business model. 2 people have died and nearly 560 arrests made after PSG's Champions League win sparked riots across France last night. A 17-year-old was stabbed to death and a man in his 20s killed in a scooter crash during street celebrations. Police used tear gas and water cannons in Paris, where fireworks were hurled at officers and cars set alight. One officer is still in a coma after being struck by a firecracker. More violence is also expected today as the team holds celebration parades. Britain is bracing for a new era of threat, with £1.5 billion set aside for 6 new weapons factories and munitions spending set to triple to £6 billion. The Defence Secretary says it's a clear message to Moscow and warns that the UK is already under cyber attack and that he says keyboard has become a weapon of war. A new cyber command will launch to counter daily assaults from hostile states like Russia and China. Long-range missiles and drones will also be built here in the UK, with 1,800 new jobs promised as part of Labour's defence overhaul. Well, we can now take a listen to what John Healey had to say to Camilla Tominey earlier this morning here on GB News.
keyboard has become a weapon of war, and it's one of the reasons that in the last couple of days I've made the commitment that we'll put £1 billion into the digital upgrade of our armed forces so that we can link AI, autonomy and drones to the hard metal of tanks and artillery and planes, but also we'll establish a new cyber command to try and deal with these threats.
John Healey there speaking to us earlier this morning. Well, just a breaking update for you on the Ukraine-Russia conflict. Confirmation in the last hour or so that Ukraine has carried out a major drone attack on Russian planes and military aircraft. 40 military aircraft attacked in that major drone strike today alone, including long-range bombers used to target Ukrainian cities. We're just in the process of verifying some video into us from the Reuters news agency that appears to show the moment of those attacks. At the same time, in response, Russia saying they launched more than 470 drones at Ukraine overnight. That is the highest number in a single night now since the war began, and comes, interestingly enough, as both sides are now heading to Istanbul for those ceasefire talks tomorrow. Ukraine's delegation being led by their defence minister, and Russia confirming that their delegation is now on the way to Istanbul also. So we'll keep across the developments in those talks tomorrow here on GB News. The death toll in Rafah has risen to 31 after Israeli tanks reportedly opened fire near an aid distribution centre, according to local rescuers. More than 200 people have been taken to hospital, many with serious injuries, but the Israel-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation says the reports are false and fabricated, claiming aid was distributed without incident. The IDF says it's unaware of any civilian casualties and is reviewing the incident. Meanwhile, Israeli forces say they've eliminated dozens of terrorists and destroyed 100 Hamas targets in nearby Khan Yunis. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back with you in around half an hour's time. Now, though, it's over to Dawn.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello, there you are. Thanks very much, Sam. We were sharing sweets during the break, and they're very fizzy ones, so yeah, a bit of a wake-up. I just want to read one of your messages out, right? I love this message, and lots of you agreeing with it. This is about the debate we're having earlier on about pupils being told that Vikings were more diverse than just being white. This is Chatterbox. They say, if there are all these black people around with the Vikings, how come there aren't more black people in the UK and Nordics who have generational family history in the UK going back as far and further than records begin? We know from remains undug that skeletons were characteristic of white people. It's our history, our parents and their parents have passed down the stories. Black people have been in the UK long enough to be considered true Brits. There's no need to rewrite history to create a place for black people. Absolutely, lots of people are agreeing with that one. Let me know, gbnews.com/you'll say what you think. Now, earlier this morning on GB News, the wonderful Camilla Tominey spoke with the Secretary of State for Defence, John Healey. Their conversation covered several key topics, including smashing the gangs, oh yes, that one, the government's decision to scrap the Rwanda policy and the future of the UK's nuclear deterrent. Let's have a listen.
A record 1,200 people confirmed to have arrived at Dover yesterday. In what world, Mr. Healey, is this the Labour government smashing the gangs?
It's the Labour government taking some of the steps necessary to deal with what's a complex international problem, and the fact that, in truth, Britain lost control of its borders 5 or 6 years ago. And so when the Tories left office and left government last year, they left the asylum system in chaos, they left record levels of immigration, and the sight we've seen of these small boats over this last 24 hours just underlines and highlights the problem. And what we're doing with the French is a part of trying to deal with these gangs. Well, part of what's necessary is to get the French to intervene when the boats are in shallow waters, not just when they're on the shore. And we've got to a stage now which the previous government just didn't get to, where we've got the cooperation of the French and a new relationship in place. We've got the agreement of the French that they will start to intervene in these shallow waters, not just on the shore. And our work now with the French is to get this into operation, because what we have seen is these smugglers setting to sea down the coast and arriving in these shallow waters to pick people up like a taxi. We've got to end that, and that's part of smashing the gangs, reducing the small boats, as well as getting on top of the asylum system.
Sorry, just on the French, I mean, we've paid the French 480 million. Actually, interceptions are down under this Labour government. In 2023, the French were intercepting 47% of crossings. Last year, they were intercepting 45% of crossings. This year, they're only intercepting 38%. So what on earth have we given them £500,000 for? £500 million, in fact.
Well, it's not just about payment. It's not just about payment. This highlights the fact that it's a question about powers, and it's about the French police having the new powers to be able to deal with these migrants and these boats when they're on the water, in those shallow waters, not just on the shore. And if we get that operation in place, it will start to help. And you talk about the cost, 700 million under the last government of the Rwanda scheme, and just four volunteers and 700 million of taxpayers' money.
Well, you don't know if it would have been a deterrent because you scrapped it before you'd even tried it. If Rwanda was in place now, you might not have 1,200 people arriving by dinghy yesterday.
It was a failed scheme. It was hugely expensive. It wasn't working. We scrapped it, and we've been able to use that money to clamp down on those people who should not be in this country. And so that's why you've seen since the election 30,000 people deported for this country because they have no right to be in this country. And that's at a level we haven't seen for years.
Can you comment on this story, Mr. Healy, on the front of the Sunday Telegraph headlined, the Sunday Times, British fighter jets to carry nuclear bombs?
Well, when we produce the Strategic Defence Review and publish that tomorrow, you'll see it set out the way that we are in a period of new threats. And my job as Defence Secretary, and our job as a government, our first duty as a government, is to make sure that we keep this country safe. Now, I'm not going to comment on the detail of that story, and those sorts of discussions must remain secret between allies, not in public. But I will say this about the nuclear deterrent that the UK has. It has been the ultimate guarantee of our safety for more than 70 years. It is what Putin fears most, and the UK is the only country that fully commits its nuclear deterrent to the protection of other NATO allies. And strong deterrence is essential to keep our people safe, our country safe, and the alliance safe as well.
OK, so you're not denying that story. That story, the contents of it are roughly true, but no final decisions have been made.
You'll read more tomorrow in the Strategic Defence Review about the risks that we face, about the new nuclear risks that are rising. But I'm not going to comment on that story today. And these are discussions which are not conducted in public and should never be conducted in public.
OK. Can you give us some more clarification of why you have said the keyboard has become a weapon of war?
I've been quite shocked by this, to be quite honest. I took over as Defence Secretary 10 months ago, and in the last year, defence across the range has been the subject of 90,000 attacks, cyber attacks, that are linked to other states. Now, with that level of aggression, that level of threat, it's quite clear that the keyboard has become a weapon of war, and it's one of the reasons that in the last couple of days I've made the commitment that we'll put £1 billion into the digital upgrade of our armed forces so that we can link AI, autonomy and drones to the hard metal of tanks and artillery and planes. But also we'll establish a new cyber command to try and deal with these threats. And alongside that, of course, I want to make sure, and the SDR will set this out, how the record increase in defence investment that we're putting in from a diversion of overseas development aid money brings a defence dividend with more jobs, more support for British business right across the UK.
OK, when we think of cyber threats, I think we instantly think of Russia and China. And the audience will think there's a contradiction in government policy here. On one hand, to plough this £1 billion into trying to fight cyber threats, and on the other, spending £30 billion worth of taxpayers' money over the course of the next decades, giving away the Chagos Islands to Mauritius, who in turn are linked to China and Russia.
Diego Garcia is a very special base that we share with the Americans. It is fundamental to our and their intelligence and defence. It has an airfield and a deep water port that allows our nuclear-powered submarines and our carrier to dock. It allows us to deploy armed forces around the world. And we had to secure, it was jeopardised, the future of that base was jeopardised in the few years ahead. And this was the only way, and it is the most effective way, of securing the operational sovereignty for Britain of that base for the next 99 years and beyond. It's a good deal for our armed forces, it keeps Britain safer, and that's why it has the support from the US, it has the support from India, it has the support from the UN as well.
But what about that clause in the contract which says that we have to automatically intelligence share with Mauritius? Aren't you concerned about their close relationship with China and Russia and what information Mauritius might actually share, which might not be in our national interest?
There's no clause like that in the treaty. In fact, what there is in the treaty is not just the total operational control of Diego Garcia for the UK, but a 20-mile exclusion zone that allows us to stop Chinese or any other hostile activity, and a lock on the development and any activity on the wider islands up to around 100 nautical miles. This is a way that we protect what is an essential intelligence and defence base for us and for our closest ally, the United States.
But there is a clause in the deal which puts a duty on the British to tell the Mauritian government of any attack on another state conducted from Diego Garcia. That's been said by some in the intelligence community to be a massive gift to Beijing.
They're entirely wrong about that. Look, we have total operational freedom and sovereignty. We will do for 99 years and beyond. In the treaty, it requires us expeditiously as possible to let the Mauritians know if we've used the base for military activity. We can do that. We can do that, and we will, but it protects our ability to operate from Diego Garcia. It protects the ability of the US as our closest allies to continue to keep this absolutely essential base where we conduct operations that we could not conduct and the US could not conduct anywhere else in the world. That's why it's so important, both to the safety of UK citizens. It's been the place in which we've disrupted and broken up terrorist cells, attacking Britain as well as attacking our troops deployed around the world. It's the way that we are able to deploy our forces safely across the world as well, and it's an essential element of that special closeness between the US and the UK on intelligence and defence.
Very final quick question, Defence Secretary, maybe just a yes or no answer will expedite time. Was it acceptable for the Attorney General, Lord Hermer, to describe Reform UK and Tories advocating leaving the ECHR as akin to Nazis?
No, he's apologised for it. It's a mistake.
Should he resign?
He's recognised exactly what you say.
OK. All right. Defence Secretary John Healey, thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning.
That was Camilla's interview with John Healey earlier on. Not a lot of you are impressed by it, has to be said. Catherine says, John Healey stumbling over his words. He has no idea or answers what to do over the invasion. Catherine's words, not mine. Margaret says, 1,200 for the free life paid for us. Got to be the world to move here across the globe and save France. You know what she means there. And Elizabeth says, the French are capable of arresting our fishermen. They can definitely burst the dinghies and take control of the migrants. All lies from Mega. So it doesn't actually appear that John Healey... Oh, yeah, and Joe says, have a day off, Healey. You can't secure the Dover border, let alone national security. Not a lot of love in the room there, is there? OK, right, what are we doing next? We are now doing... Where are we? Where are we? We're doing a giveaway, aren't we? Yes, we're doing a giveaway. It's the best part of the show because it makes you lot happy. Time is running out on your chance to win our biggest Great British giveaway. Yeah, it's the camper van. It's a brand new camper van. It's worth £67,000 and we're throwing in £5,000 in cash. Here you go. Here's how to win it.
It's the final week to see how you could be our biggest winner yet.
Driving away in this Elnag Baron 560 motorhome, courtesy of Marquis Leisure. It has plenty of room for your family of 4. Comes complete with kitchen, bathroom and all the space you'll need for life on the road. And the best news? You can drive it on your existing driving licence. Plus, we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Don't delay. You can't win if you're not in the draw. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63222. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry starts at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
This motorhome and £5,000 in cash really could be yours. Good luck.
Yes, it really could. She doesn't come with it, by the way. I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News. There's loads more coming up. On today's show, it's absolutely packed, including this story. Should prison officers be armed after a string of violent incidents? We'll debate whether it's time to give them extra protection. All of that and much more to come. This is GB News at Britain's News Channel. Don't go too far. We'll see you soon.
This is our country, and we think it's amazing. From high tea to the high street, we love it all. Even the rain, we like that too. There's nowhere else we'd rather be. That's why we're here to be the fearless champion of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we are GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Ranjit Mathrani. Ranjit, welcome to the show. You're being booted out by the Crown Estate. What's going on?
Well, the answer is I don't know, because they keep on giving different reasons on different occasions with one simple objective, to get us out of the premises. And the irony is that 1 year before they decided not to terminate our lease, they actually invited us to take over more space on the first floor of the restaurant. And then they dramatically changed their mind. I'm sorry about the background noise, I'm the evidence. They dramatically changed their mind after a locked drain, which they blamed on us, which wiped out their electrics. And they claim they needed space, 11 square meters of the space for their entrance. On other occasions, they claim they need the space in order to do the refurbishment works. Neither of those arguments are very convincing. They could have a reception space if they wanted to on the first floor, and they could work around us, as many landlords have done in refurbishing the offices.
So Ranjit, if I may interject, Ranjit, if I may interject, we don't have a great deal of time left. Ostensibly, they're trying to hike up your rent, and you think they're using a backdoor method of doing so to get you out. You're an institution in London.
We are indeed an institution. Not only that, we are a living institution. You know, we were invited to cater for the Queen on 2 occasions, but in Paris, she in fact agreed to have dinner with us before COVID struck.
GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters. Real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to The Weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Thank you very much for your company this Sunday afternoon. I hope you have a lovely weekend out there. Now, Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick has proposed arming prison officers with lethal weapons to tackle Islamist terrorism in jails. The plan comes after Southport killer Axel Rudakabana allegedly threw boiling water over an officer. But the Ministry of Justice has branded Jenrick's proposal as the arsonists pretending to be firefighters. Oh, yeah. So, should prison officers be armed? Joining me now to discuss this is commentator and former police officer Henry Bolton and former prison governor Vanessa Frake. Lovely to see you both. Thank you for joining me. OK, going to come to you first with Henry on this one. OK, armed prison officers, is this a good idea?
It's a rather black and white question, that, isn't it? I mean, I think what Robert Jenrick was trying to say is that prison officers need to be better protected, provided with better means to defend themselves and to restrain prisoners should the need arise. And given recent events and recent assaults on prison officers, and the figures, as I understand them, last year 122. Prison officers per 1,000. That's 10,605 assaults against prison officers last year. And that's quite a high rate. So I think he's right. And I think that we have, as a liberal society over the last few decades, we have allowed prisoners, we've gone down sort of understandable reasons, but gone down more and more the route of rehabilitation, treating people sort of as though this is an opportunity for them to sort of make good, rather than constraining them as much as perhaps I would like to see in terms of their means to commit violence within jails. And there's also violence prisoner on prisoner, 342 per 1,000 last year. So there's a lot of violence going on. That's a third of prisoners effectively being assaulted in prison in 1 year. So I think Robert is right. We need to provide prison officers in this day and age where we've given more freedoms in prison. That's also equating to more freedom to commit violence, in a sense. We need to provide them with more means to both protect themselves and to deal with the prisoners who would otherwise commit violence. OK, Vanessa, only on Friday, a prisoner officer, HMP Long-Lasting in Worcestershire, was seriously injured when he was stabbed by a violent inmate. Surely we need to, I mean, bearing in mind prison officers start on £30,000 a year salary, surely we need to do something, otherwise Jenrick has said one of them will be murdered on the job.
Look, we've said this for a long time. We've said for years about the increase year on year of violence in our prisons. And there are a whole range of reasons for that. I disagree with the fact that we focus on reducing reoffending. At the moment, what we're doing is warehousing prisoners and making better criminals. The fact that Robert Jenrick came out with this idea of arming prison officers fills me with absolute horror. I don't know if the gentleman you've just been speaking to has ever been in a prison, Henry. But they are confined spaces. They are not like the police walking around open air. A standard cell is 6 foot by 8 foot. In order for a taser to work, you need to stand around 15 foot away. What happens when that prison officer who carries a weapon on a landing is overpowered? The consequences of arms in prison just doesn't bear thinking about. And, I am quite concerned that Robert Jenrick thinks that this is acceptable. Many prison officers I've spoken to since this was announced have been horrified at the thought of carrying arms in a jail.
Henry, what would you say to that? I mean, what if the lunatics do literally take over the asylum and get hold of those lethal weapons?
Yeah, well, first of all, are we talking about lethal weapons? I think, you've got to risk assess every prisoner. You've got to risk assess every prison because the physical environment has a role to play. And you match the capability that you need to that risk, to managing that risk. And I think, what Robert was not talking about using lethal force. He did mention tasers, but I would say that it is about risk assessment. And we can't go down the road of saying, look, these prisoners are because of the physical
Sorry,
environment.
Henry, sorry to interrupt. He did actually propose that secure armouries to hold lethal weapons should be introduced.
Yes, but not as a matter of course. And I would absolutely advocate, given the rising tide of extremism in prisons, and we shouldn't over-egg that, we shouldn't exaggerate it, but it exists and it's growing. I think there is a real threat in prisons of prisoners sort of being able to take over, and then you need to have a very rapid response, and if necessary, it may need to include lethal weapons, but not arming prison officers as a matter of general course. And I think you've got to fit the response to the risk, and at the moment I think we have underplayed the risk. For a whole variety of reasons. There's cost, there's organisation. As quite rightly said, a lot of prison officers would be appalled at the idea of being given, expected to carry lethal weapons. It's the same as police officers. Most police officers don't want to carry firearms. So, we've got to tailor this. It's a bit nuanced, but we've let it get to a stage where
let's come back to Vanessa on this. Vanessa, you've been at the sharp end of this. I mean, you've worked in prisons, obviously, your entire career. The Shadow Justice Secretary also claimed that Islamist gangs and violent prisons are out of control. Would you agree with what he said?
To a point, I would suggest that with the fact that we have appeased violent, difficult-to-manage prisoners over the last 20 years, instead of managing them. I'd like to see a much more rigid regime based on the supermax, where prisoners those sorts of difficult to manage violent prisoners are managed in solitary confinement, handcuffed everywhere, given an hour's exercise, restricted visits, minimum items in cells. And of course, what we have to combat that nobody, and not even Robert Jenrick, managed to mention, is the drones. It's all very well having a 400-metre no-fly zone around every closed prison in the country. That's great. But there is much more modern technology, jamming, lasers, to track and monitor the drones, etc., etc. The list is endless, that need to happen. Absolutely, staff. Sorry, Dawn. Staff should be issued with stab vests, without a doubt.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we have been calling for that for years, but told it was too intimidating.
Yeah.
I think I would agree with all of that, if I may. I'd agree with all of that. But what we're talking about here is government now. The Ministry of Justice is being faced with a decision, and it needs to make a decision which course it wants to go down. Does it want to go down that supermax path, which I totally support, or does it want to go down the path of just kind of managing on a day-to-day basis the existing estate with the existing resources, in which case we've got to do a great deal more about safeguarding our prison officers.
OK, just one final question to both of you. There's a line in this report that brought me up short. It's reported that sniffer dogs have been banned from Manchester bomber Hashim Abidi's unit after complaints it would offend his Muslim faith. Are we being too soft on prisoners in this incident, Vanessa?
Without a doubt. There's absolutely no reason why sniffer dogs can't be used on Muslim prisoners. What you do usually is you use a sheet to shield the prisoner, but the dog can sniff through much, I can tell you that, for nothing. Okay. And it's absolutely ridiculous.
Henry?
Yeah, I can tell you that when I was in Afghanistan for 27 months with the US Marine Corps, as a Brit, but alongside them, sniffer dogs were a problem. And the war dogs that they used, because it created a degree of tension. I was appalled when British and US military decided to reduce the use of dogs because of that. And it was something that was played upon. Of course, dogs are a useful tool in a public order environment, or in finding drugs and weapons and explosives and so on. We have to use them. They're a very useful tool. And I'm sorry, if you don't like it, you probably shouldn't be in jail in the first place.
Exactly. Strong words. Thank you both very much indeed. That's Henry Bolton and Vanessa Frake there on whether prison guards, who, remember, start on £30,000 a year, should be armed to protect them. Thank you very much, both of you. OK, I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News, and there's loads more coming up on today's show. But first, let's get the... Yes, it's back. It's Sam Francis again. Here he is.
Dawn, thank you, and a very good afternoon to you at 33 minutes past 2. Britain has lost control of its borders. That is the warning from the Defence Secretary today after a record 1,194 migrants crossed the English Channel in just a single day. Migrants, including children, were seen wading into the shallows on French beaches as police watched and later escorted the boats towards the UK. Well, it brings the total so far this year to now nearly 15,000 people. That's up 42% on the same time last year. John Healey has blamed the previous Conservative government for what he described as chaos in the asylum system and criticised French police for failing to intervene. However, the Home Office says it will still stop at nothing to dismantle the smugglers' business model. Britain is bracing for a new era of threat, with £1.5 billion set aside for 6 new weapons factories and munitions spending set to triple to £6 billion. Defence Secretary John Healey says it's a clear message to Moscow and warns the UK is already under cyber attack and that the keyboard, he says, has now become a weapon of war. A new cyber command will launch to counter daily assaults from hostile states like Russia and China. And long-range missiles and drones will also be built here in the UK, with 1,800 new jobs promised as part of that defence overhaul by the Labour government. Well, here's what John Healey had to say to Camilla Tominey earlier today on GB News.
The keyboard has become a weapon of war, and it's one of the reasons that in the last couple of days I've made the commitment that we'll put £1 billion into the digital upgrade of our armed forces so that we can link AI, autonomy and drones to the hard metal of tanks and artillery and planes. But also we'll establish a new cyber command to try and deal with these threats.
And an update on the situation between Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine saying it has destroyed over 40 Russian nuclear-capable bombers, aircraft that is, in a bold wave of drone strikes on major operations, air bases across Russia to, they say, wipe out Kremlin warplanes. Explosions reported throughout the night and into this morning across various parts of Russia, including, in fact, the Arctic. Video showing smoke rising from a number of airfields, though at this stage that footage not yet verified by the team here at GB News. It is one of the most audacious attacks on Russian aviation to date in the now 3-year-long war. At the same time, Russia saying it launched more than 470 drones at Ukraine overnight. That is the highest number in just a single night since the war began. Both sides, though, now heading to Istanbul for peace talks starting on Monday. President Zelensky saying Ukraine's goal at those talks is a, quote, complete and unconditional ceasefire. So do stay with us for plenty more on that. That is, for now, though, it from me for this afternoon. Katie Bowen will have your full update at 3 o'clock, and Dawn will be back with you right now, I believe.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thanks, Sam. Missing you already. Now, remember, let me know your thoughts on all the stories we're discussing today at gbnews.com/your say. Very easy to get in touch, and I really love hearing from you. I read as many as I possibly can. Now, the next story, you won't quite believe what you're hearing. We're speaking to a witch who says she was kicked out of a druid training course for... Well, I'm actually not going to tell you what she was kicked out for, because I think you might be very surprised to find out. So don't go too far. I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News, and there's some really interesting stuff coming up after this short break. See you soon.
Hello and welcome to a GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, it's a showery start to meteorological summer, drier on Monday and then turning wet and windy later. So looking at the bigger picture, we have this area of low pressure situated towards the north, quite breezy as well, with a bit of a squeeze in the isobars and frontal systems moving through. So best of the fine and dry weather across the southeast today. Elsewhere, it is going to be a mixture of sunny spells, scattered showers, longer spells of rain clearing its way eastwards across Scotland, followed by further showers behind. Otherwise, breezy out there, but the strongest winds really confined to northwestern Scotland, so feeling cool here. Otherwise, highs of up to 20 to 22 in the southeast. Now, as we go through a Sunday evening, further showers. Some of these could be heavy, especially across north and eastern parts of Scotland, with longer spells of rain across the north and accompanied by some strong winds. Across Northern Ireland, a similar picture, some late evening spells of sunshine, but mixed with showers. Across much of England and Wales, though, largely fine and dry to end Sunday. Just a few showers around. So as we go through Sunday evening and overnight, we have some spells of rain across the north and west of Scotland, but with the ridge of higher pressure moving in, most of the showers will start easing, so turning a lot drier with lengthy clear skies as we go overnight and lighter winds. So it could turn chilly in some spots, especially across the north where we could see a touch of frost, otherwise milder in the south. So as we start Monday, many places waking up to a fine and dry day. We'll see a few showers bubbling up, mostly across East Anglia, and then the sunshine turning hazy out towards the west across Northern Ireland and Scotland, accompanied by a brisker wind before the area of low pressure arrives. So again, cooler here, but in the sunshine and lighter winds, feeling pleasant.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hello, welcome back to the Weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Thank you so much for your company this afternoon. Now, I've got a very special lady about to join us. Her name's Angela Howard, and she's a practising witch, and she was signing up for a Druid training course. It was meant to be a safe space for her, a place of healing after she'd been sexually assaulted by a trans woman. But it didn't quite work out the safe space that Angela thought it would be. Angela is joining us now to tell us her story exclusively. Angela, are you there?
Hi.
Angela, hi. Good to see you. Thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it. I know you're nervous, and I know your story is not the easiest story to tell. So just tell us a little bit, firstly, about being a witch and what that actually entails.
Yeah, but first of all, thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for accommodating me, because this is really hard at the moment. So my mum was a witch in Sheffield in the 1980s. She was a high priestess of her own coven. So for me, being a witch or a pagan was normal in much the same way someone might grow up in a Christian household. And then as an adult, some nasty things happened to me. And so about a decade ago, I was trying to find ways to heal from my traumas. And that's when I felt a really strong calling to it. But unlike Christianity, in paganism, there are both gods and goddesses. And there's a load of good stuff about fertility and feminine power. I do ritual, I do spell work, I create ceremony, and I work with aspects of the goddess. And I also follow a druidic path. I celebrate the cycles of life, the turning of the seasons, and a belief that everything has a life force to it. So I feel that my practice brings me closer to the natural cycles and rhythms of nature. So to understand myself as a woman, but also to find spiritual community.
Yeah, and your faith, your religion is very much female orientated, isn't it? It very is much about Mother Nature and the cycles of nature, which as women we are very in tune with. We have our own cycles. I completely understand that. So what happened to you next is very concerning. Go on, tell us the problems you've had.
Right, so I started out from the position that trans women were women and trans men were men. And I had a trans friend, and he liked to talk about going to the gym. And he said things like there were crusty old hags who were alarmed about him being in the women's changing rooms. And he thought that was really funny, and he loved freaking them out. Now, I say he, but back then I used the pronoun she, because later on that same trans person sexually assaulted me. And up until that point, I really did consider him to be one of us, a woman.
Of course.
And then I heard the news about Karen White, the rapist that was transferred to a woman's prison. And I thought, hang on, but rape is the most male crime possible. And how can this person really be a woman? And that's when the pile-on started. You get accused of transphobia. You get called a right-wing Nazi. And I'm actually quite left-wing. And this is all because I have a care for vulnerable women. And well, that all sort of caused me to relapse quite hard. So I sought out the refuge in a rape crisis centre, and then only to discover that there were men there. Not trans women, but regular men. And I had the audacity to complain about that, and I was told that for funding reasons they weren't allowed to exclude men. And that was a really difficult time for me, and it's still an ongoing healing process.
So you would have thought that, you know, the Druid training course you wanted to do, you wanted to attend as part of your healing, completely understand. I think every other woman listening to you talking very bravely today will understand that. You'd have thought a Druid training course was very understanding of your position on Mother Nature, what it is to be a woman. But that wasn't the case, was it?
Well, no, it wasn't. The weird thing is that the ancient Druids were the peacekeepers and mediators of their time. They would stop tribes from going to war with each other. And so I expected better from them. I expected them to speak in mediation and to facilitate sensible spaces to talk and hold space for all sides to be heard. And I feel that the stance that they're taking now, by treating me and others, many, many, many others, the same way, by excluding us and silencing us, I feel that that's very anti-woman, anti-nature, and very much anti-goddess. And so I've responded to them about that.
And this happened at the same time as the Supreme Court ruling actually said what you and I and pretty much every other woman on the planet knows, that a woman is a woman, a biological female, a biological sex that makes us a woman. So they've cancelled you, they've banned you. I mean, what effects is that having on you?
You know, it's made me feel alone and excluded, and, you know, it re-traumatizes me, because it feels like there's just no safe spaces for women. I mean, if you're going on a witch hunt against witches, it's just the most ludicrous, absurd thing. You know, it's made me reflect on the divine feminine and what we mean by that, because, you know, the divine feminine isn't all about being fluffy and unicorns. It's also about strength. And women have been told over the centuries that that's not a desirable trait, and so we've been silenced. So I'm looking to the goddess for spiritual guidance and inner knowing, and she's telling me to fight this. That's my voice, that's my birthright. But I found lots of like-minded people, so we're coming together. We witches are uniting at the moment. We're the witches who won't burn. We fight back. But also, this time, the law is actually on our side. This is a mainstream view.
Indeed. Angela, an honour to talk to you, and thank you so much for telling your story, which you did brilliantly, by the way, and continue your brave fight. And yeah, I think all women are the witches you couldn't burn, by the way. That is our Angela Howard there. Thank you very much. Now, OK, GB News approached the British Druid Order and UK Pagan Federation for comment, but they are yet to get back to us. Make of that what you will. gbnews.com/your say. Let me have your comments on that one. And if you are in search of some holiday sun, whether you're a witch or not, here is a forecast for some of those top European destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast. Hello, there's plenty of hot sunshine across most of the Mediterranean, but there are some thunderstorms in places, particularly in southern France. Across the Canary Islands and Madeira, though, there'll be this brisk northerly flow on Monday, bringing in quite a bit of cloud, but sunshine for southern parts of Spain. Here are those thunderstorms across the Alps, southern parts of France, but most of Italy, the Balkans and Greece and Turkey having plenty of hot sunshine and temperatures into the high 20s, and the outlook is for plenty more dry and settled weather.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Nigel is back.
Good evening.
Unfiltered.
Are these proposals bold enough?
Uncompromising.
Will it bring growth?
Unmissable.
We as a country are brilliant.
Nigel Farage returns this Tuesday from 7 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. OK, were you watching Doctor Who last night? The sensible people amongst you would have had GB News on, obviously, but maybe you've caught up on Doctor Who when GB News isn't broadcasting live. Because if you watched it and you're like me, and many of you are my similar generation, you remember Doctor Who when it was chalk pits and quarries in Kent and the Daleks were made out of egg boxes and everyone understood what the hell was going on. I watched it last night, 70 minutes. Ncuti Gatwa, I think, is brilliant. I mean, he's a very good actor, very easy on the eye, it has to be said. He's quitting last night. But there's been lots of criticism and the viewing figures haven't been great, mostly because nobody can understand it. Now, last night's mega show, the last one in the series, had a surprise at the end of it that most people say never saw coming. Billie Piper, remember her? She was in it a few years ago. There, you can see it now. That's a regeneration scene. Come on, you know what I'm talking about here. And that's Ncuti Gatwa disappearing, and in his place, Billie Piper. OK. Well, she is possibly going to be the next Doctor Who. We don't know. After a 12-year break, she is replacing, but we don't know what she's actually going to be, but it's got fans buzzing. Now, is it a bold move or nostalgic brilliance? So let's have a quick chat with the Who Shop owner, Alex Loosely, on what the hell was going on last night. Alex, thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate your time. Alex, we're running out of time, unfortunately. Sure. Is Doctor Who working still?
Yes, but I'm glad you said possibly, Doctor, because last night broke all the previous. At the end of the story, they always say, and introducing, and they have the name of who the new Doctor was. Now, of course, that didn't happen with Billy. So, as far as I'm concerned, we're going to be picking up back from Parting of the Ways, story that the fans will know from a long time ago, when she absorbed things to help the Doctor. So I think maybe that's the route we're going.
Right, OK, so be a great surprise for us. Alex, sorry it's so short and sweet, but next time we'll have more. Alex, thank you very much. Oh, God, I'm running out of time. Thank you so much for your time. I'm back for breakfast this morning. But don't go anywhere, because Nana is up next and she's got a cracking show. Here she is.
Yes, loads to talk about. Well, let's talk about Lord Irma. What's going on there? And, of course, what on earth is happening with the migrant crisis? Why is Keir Starmer so ready to call a press conference to slate Nigel Farage? But where is he now?
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers.